Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome back to our Introduction to Quranic Arabic course, and this is Nahw lesson 17. In this lesson, we will discuss some important details regarding verbs which we have not covered in the previous surf lessons. Firstly, in our previous surf lessons, we have learned that verbs are of three types: past, present, and command. However, we can also categorize verbs into either tam, complete, or naqis, incomplete. The naqis, incomplete verbs, are a small set of verbs, and thus all other verbs that are not naqis would be considered to be tam. Note that this lesson is more of an overview of this concept, since there are many nuances that we will not be discussing in this video. So let's have a look at the af'alu naqisa, the deficient verbs / incomplete verbs. What we have learned before is that if we do find a verb within a context, we would consider that to be the beginning of a new verbal sentence. And following that verb, we would find a noun which would be considered to be the fa'il or the doer. And in the case of the verb being transitive, we would find another noun which would be considered to be the maf'ul bihi, the direct object. And this is the general case for verbs, that they would have a fa'il and a maf'ul bihi. And such verbs would be what we call the tam verbs, the complete verbs. However, in the case of the naqis verbs, the incomplete verbs, there will be no fa'il, but there would be a ism li fi'l naqis instead, the ism of the incomplete verb. And there would be no maf'ul bihi, but a khabar li fi'l naqis instead. So the tam verbs are verbs that have a fa'il and possibly a maf'ul bihi, whereas the naqis verbs would be verbs that have a ism li fi'l naqis and a khabar li fi'l naqis. So some of the incomplete verbs that we have come across before are kana and its sisters, but the full list of the incomplete verbs are divided into the following categories. So we have kana wa akhawatuha, kana and its sisters, and that would include kana, sara, asbaha, adha, etc. Then the next category would be af'alul muqaraba, the verbs of proximity, for example, kada, karaba, awshaka. And the meaning for those would be equivalent to it is close or he is close. Then the next category is af'alu shuru', the verbs of initiation. Some examples of those are ja'ala, akhadha, shar'a, qama, etc. And the meaning there would be equivalent to beginning or starting. The last category is af'alu raja, the verbs of hoping, asa, hara, ikhlawlaqa. These meanings are equivalent to perhaps, maybe, etc. Let's have a look at some examples of these from the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وكان عهد الله مسؤولا. So here we can see we have kana, which is the fi'l naqis. The word ad is the ism li fi'l naqis, and mas'ula would be the khabar li fi'l naqis. And the meaning is, and the promise to Allah is ever questioned. Number 2, lastum ala shay. Here we see that lastum is the fi'l naqis. The pronoun attached tum is the ism li fi'l naqis, and ala shay'in there's jar majroor, which is muta'alliq to the khabar li fi'l naqis. And the meaning there is, you are upon nothing. Number 3, yabituna li rabbihim sujjada. Here we see that yabitun, that's fi'l naqis. The ism li fi'l naqis is the wawul jama'a there, the pronoun. And the noun sujjada is the khabar li fi'l naqis. The meaning there is, they spend the night to their Lord prostrating. Number 4, فَنَظَلُّ لَهَا عَاكِفِينَ. Yeah, dhalla is the fi'l naqis. The ism li fi'l naqis is the pronoun nahnu inside of there. And عَاكِفِينَ, that noun is the khabar li fi'l naqis. The meaning is, we remain devoted to it. Number 5, فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Asbaha is the fi'l naqis, tum is the ism li fi'l naqis, and ikhwana, that noun, is the khabar li fi'l naqis. The meaning, you became by his favor brothers. Number 6, فذبحوها وما كادوا يفعلون. The كادوا is the فعل ناقص, the واو الجماعة is the اسم لفعل ناقص, and that verbal sentence يفعلون becomes the خبر لفعل ناقص. The meaning for that is, so they slaughtered it, but they could hardly do it. Number 7. لن ندخلها أبدا ما داموا فيها. The داموا is the فعل ناقص, the واو الجماعة there is the اسم لفعل ناقص, and فيها جر مجرور متعلق, that is the خبر لفعل ناقص. The meaning for that is, we will never enter it if they are in it. Number 8. إلى الله تصير الأمور. Here we see that تصير is the فعل ناقص, الأمور is the اسم لفعل ناقص, and إلى الله جر مجرور متعلق, that is the خبر لفعل ناقص. The meaning there is, to Allah do all matters return. Number 9. فلن أبرح الأرض حتى يأذن لي أبي. The أبرح is the فعل ناقص. Inside of the verb is the ضمير مستتر هو, the hidden pronoun, and that would be the اسم لفعل ناقص, and the word الأرض is the خبر لفعل ناقص. The meaning for that ayah is, I will never leave the land until my father permits me. Number 10. تكاد السماوات يتفطرن منه. يتكاد is the فعل ناقص, السماوات is the اسم لفعل ناقص, and يتفطرن, that verbal sentence is the خبر لفعل ناقص. And the meaning is, the heavens almost rupture therefrom. Number 11. ولا يزالون مختلفين. يزالون is the فعل ناقص, the واو الجماعة is the اسم لفعل ناقص, and مختلفين is خبر لفعل ناقص. The meaning there is, and they will continue to differ. Number 12. وطفق يقصفان عليهما من ورق الجنة. طفق, there's the فعل ناقص, and the dual attached pronoun there is the اسم لفعل ناقص, and يقصفان, that verbal sentence would be the خبر لفعل ناقص. The meaning there is, and they began to fasten over themselves from the leaves of paradise. Number 13. عسى ربكم أن يهلك عدوكم. عسى is فعل ناقص, the word رب is the اسم لفعل ناقص, and أن يهلك عدوكم, that is the verbal sentence. That verbal sentence is the خبر لفعل ناقص. The meaning is, perhaps your Lord will destroy your enemy. So to conclude, verbs can also be divided into either tam or naqis. And if a verb is naqis, that would mean that it would not have a fa'il and a maf'ul bihi, but it would have instead a ism li fi'l naqis and a khabar li fi'l naqis. So moving on, another aspect related to verbs is that some verbs can have more than one maf'ul bihi direct object. These are dhanna wa akhawatuha, dhanna and its sisters. So dhanna and its sisters are جعل, علم, حسب, ظن, رأى, وجد, زعم, اتخذ, and خال. These verbs can have more than one direct object. Look at the examples. فلما رآه عارضا مستقبل أوديتهم قالوا هذا عارض ممطرنا. So رأى here is the sister of ظن. The hu ضمير there is the first مفعول به, and عارضا is the second مفعول به. So the meaning for that verse, and when they saw it as a cloud approaching their valleys, they said, this is a cloud bringing us rain. Number 2. فقال له فرعون إني لأظنك يا موسى مسحورا. So ظن there is the fi'al, the verb, ka is the first مفعول به, and مسحورا is the second مفعول به. And the meaning is, and Pharaoh said to them, indeed, I think, O Moses, that you are affected by magic. Number 3. الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء. So جعل there is the verb, and it's a sister of ظن. الأرض is the first مفعول به, and فراشا second مفعول به. The meaning is, the one who made for you the earth a place of settlement and the sky a structure. Number 4, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا عَمَّا يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Here the verb لَا تَحْسَبَنَّ, the root is hasiba, which is a sister of dhanna, that is the fi'al. Then the word Allah is the first maf'ul bihi, and ghafilan the second maf'ul bihi. And the meaning, and never think that Allah is unaware of what the wrongdoers do. Number 5, الَّذِينَ يَتَّخِذُونَ الْكَافِرِينَ أَوْلِيَاءَ مِن دُونِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So يَتَّخِذُ is a sister of dhanna, that's the verb. Al-kafirina is the first maf'ul bihi, and awliya'a is the second maf'ul bihi. The meaning for that verse is those who take disbelievers as allies instead of the believers. So to summarize, what we have learned in this lesson is that verbs can either be tam or naqis. If a verb is naqis, it won't have a fa'il and a maf'ul bihi. Instead, it would have the ism li fi'l naqis and the khabar li fi'l naqis. Also, we have learned that there are some verbs that can take multiple maf'ul bihis, direct objects. They are dhanna and its sisters. So for homework, please revise this lesson. And number 2, complete the exercises on the Google Classroom stream or do the analysis of verse 11 on page 78 of the workbook.